Welcome to Connecting with Coincidence with psychiatrist Bernard David Beitman, MD. Dr. Beitman is the founder of the Coincidence Project. The project encourages people like you to tell each other coincidence stories. To learn more about Dr. Beitman's work, put Connecting with Coincidence in your web browser. You'll find his book, his Psychology Today blog, and the interviews from this podcast. And now your host, Bernard Beitman, MD.
Welcome to Connecting with Coincidence. I am your host, Bernard Beitman, MD, a psychiatrist. I study the mind and the brain and its physical and cultural connections. Meaningful coincidences like synchronicity and serendipity provide clues to how our minds and our brains connect deeply to our bodies, other people, nature, and our general environment. Meaningful coincidences seem to occur in all aspects of human life. You just need to expect them. You can pre-order my new book, Meaningful Coincidences, due out in September. The URL will appear in the summary below. People who describe themselves as spiritual or religious report experiencing more meaningful coincidences than those who did not, according to research done by my coincidence studies group. In subsequent research, we proceeded to define the personality traits that were associated with high coincidence sensitivity, and our guest today is highly sensitive to coincidences. What we found is 6 personality traits that emerged as measures of coincidence sensitivity. The most prominent was referential thinking, and that refers to what outside events have particular or unusual meaning for me. Well, that's kind of a standard psychological idea, and that's a subset, and synchronicity awareness becomes a subset about that. But it can be expanded, like when I see 2 people talking at work, I usually think they're criticizing me. It's not a coincidence. It's something else. We might call it projection. But coincidences and projection are related sometimes too, but that's another story. The second most highly correlated measure was one that measured positive and negative affect. These independent measures of positive and negative affect. Positive affect terms are happy, joyful, pleased, enjoyment, fun, and negative ones are blue, depressed, unhappy, frustrated, angry, you know those, and worried, anxious. The vitality scale, feeling energy. I have energy and spirit, and people who reported that high on that scale tended to see more coincidences. And also people who were religiously committed, that is, to the degree to which the person adheres to his or her religious values, beliefs, and practices, and uses them in daily living. For example, I spend time trying to grow by understanding my faith. Meaning in life scale, our final measure, had two parts to it, but one of them was looking for meaning in life. And that's the people who are looking for meaning in life, searching for meaning in life, are also more likely to experience and report coincidences. As I mentioned, our guest today is a high frequency coincider. That's what she does. She sees a lot of coincidences. Carolyn has worked for 22 years and is a business partnership manager for the FAA. She has previously served as a federal women's program manager there for 4 years, helping to further women's federal careers. I assume FAA is Federal Aeronautics Association.
Aviation, yeah.
Administration.
Yeah.
Administration. So you were you were with the Flyers, huh? She is also versed in many metaphysical modalities, including being certified in remote viewing with Russell Targ, one of the leaders in the field, and soon to be community host representing the Cuyamungue institution. Due to a wonderful series of coincidences, Carolyn is now instrumental in starting a community food garden in her city of Ventnor, New Jersey, by the shore, the Atlantic shore. I used to go to Wildwood in Atlantic City when the cheesecake was great in Atlantic City. She feels that connecting with coincidences have guided her throughout her lifetime and is most grateful for the connection they give her with spirit. Carolyn, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bernie. Good to be here.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
It's nice how we got together. You recommended me to some Cuyamungue Institute. Then they recommended you to be on my podcast because you see a lot of coincidences, and you're not a world expert in this business in the usual sense. You haven't written a book. You don't have a podcast. You're not running some kind of program that has a lot of synchronicities in it. You're just out there, but you represent a lot of people who are experiencing a lot of coincidences, and that's why it's a delight to have you on the show. So tell us one of your best stories.
My best story would have to be the story of the coincidence that saved my life. I'll start off by saying I do believe there are a lot of different ways that we receive these messages that are coincidences. And this particular one was like a little voice inside my head. I went to Temple University. I lived in Northeast Philly. I had to take a bus, an L train, and then get off and wait for another bus to get to Temple. Every day, the same routine. So I got off the L, went down to wait for my bus. There were 3 little steps next to the bus, the pole for the bus stop, that I waited, sat on the steps every day and waited for the bus because it was usually about 20 minutes. That particular day, I hear a voice inside my head go, stand over near that pole, which was about 20, 30 feet away. And I'm thinking, what? It was bizarre. Kept saying it, kept hearing it. So, after a couple times, got up and walked over to the pole. I said, all right, I'm going to do this because why not? Why would I not if I'm being told to? Went over. About 3 seconds later, a flatbed comes driving around the corner, make the left to go towards the street where I am with a car on the back of the flatbed. Just as it goes by the steps where I usually sit, the car flies off and crashes into the steps. And I'm standing there, agape. Amazing.
The amazing part of it, besides that you're not dead, which is what we're looking for here, is that you heard a voice telling you to move.
Yes. Several times.
I've heard stories like that. The bullet comes flying, but feels the need to move, and something tells him to move. It's more. In this story, it was more physical than a voice, but the same idea was move. And there are probably many explanations, but how do you think about how that happened, Carolyn?
I believe it must have been my guides and angels, God, ultimately wanting to save my life. I guess I had some things to do in this lifetime.
So it was an intervention, a divine intervention of some kind.
I do believe that, yes. And I am a strong believer in faith. I have a Jewish background, religion. I went to Hebrew school. I went to synagogue all the time. At that time, I was still pretty religious. Now I'm less Jewish, but very spiritual still. So one of your categories fits me as far as personality types.
You betcha. You fit.
Yeah.
There's a label in parapsychology called psi-mediated, psi like telepathy, clairvoyance, mediated instrumental, meaning it works, response. And so from a PMIR, or what I call a human GPS, getting to where you need to be without knowing how you got there, or you just went. Same idea, that from this perspective, you were able to predict that was going to happen, that your psychic abilities picked up that this was going to happen and got you to move. There's data to support that this is a reality besides my own stories, but I'm not going to try to convince you of that. I'm just giving you a more scientific based explanation, which I go for first when I can have one, because there's a lot of these things, Carolyn, and you know it. You said, what? There's no way to like really explain it except mystery. And I try to be a little scientific sometimes, and that's what I talked about there. But let's go to what you've prepared for today in this. So we're going to see the Carolyn real thing happening here today. What you came up with, again, shortly before our interview, about what you wanted to talk about. Being on the show helped organize your thinking about how you think about meaningful coincidences. So let's go ahead with your 7 categories that seem to increase conditions, situations, circumstances that seem to increase the likelihood of having at least you, but I think other people too, having a meaningful coincidence. So why don't you tell us about that?
Okay. Do you want me to give my list, or do you want me to go one by one and give a little story?
Do the list first, and then we'll start going to, who knows if we'll get to the end of the list, but let's just start with, read the list off, and then start with number 1.
All right. So I was telling you, Bernie, a little bit beforehand that all of my life I've had coincidences all my life. And so every kind of piece of my life, circumstance, major circumstance of my life, I have coincidence, connection stories, a multitude of them within that kind of section of my life. But these 7 circumstances are the way I tend to receive the message, and then, following then I get the coincidence, as the second part. So the first one I said was the little voice on your shoulder that comes in maybe in your head, or you hear it around your head area, a little voice insistently telling you things. And I kind of think they're very life-changing. They've been very life-changing to me. I have this second category as deja vu, because the first instance that I remember connecting with coincidence was a deja vu story when I was 6. So I put that in a question mark, because it's a little hard to, that was the only time that happened to me. So dreams, and those I have broken down into 3 kind of categories, like hello from the departed, see a scene and then you can verify that scene later on. Informative, kind of, it's like you're told something and then the coincidence happens after you can verify that information. And precognition, you see something and then bam, it comes true. The 4th category would be weird coincidences, and that kind of falls. I also have a 5th category named fractals. I heard one of your guests speaking about fractals recently, and this coincidence is very fractalized, but I would also probably put it under a weird coincidence. story because I can't really think of any other fractal things like that happened to me. And then I have 6 visions while doing postures with Cuyamungue Institutute or meditating or just, sitting there out looking at the stars and something happens. And then the 7th would be manifesting. So I'm thinking about something, I'm thinking, oh, maybe I need to have this or somebody needs to have this. And then here it comes.
I'm glad you correct my pronunciation, Cuyamungue.
Cuyamungue.
Cuyamungue. Carolyn,
Yeah, that's years of practice on that one.
Cuyamungue. Okay, thank you.
No worries.
The weird the list you have is pretty interesting, and I think will resonate with some of the people who are watching. I'm particularly interested in the weird coincidences because that's what I have, a weird coincidence scale, but we have different ideas about them. But let's skip over the Deja Vu one because it was a long time ago and it was when you were.
But it also ties back to Cuyamungue recently. So it's very interesting.
Oh, it does.
We can go back to that if you want. We can go back to that.
Okay, well, I mean,
it's up to you. We can talk about the weird and then I
want to do the fractal ones because, as you mentioned, it was recently that I talked to somebody with fractals, and then maybe get into the weird coincidences. So I mean, it's a little bit of backward, but let's tell us this fractal one, and we can look at other ones.
We'll definitely do that. Okay, so. When I was young and lived in Philly, I lived in a row home. We had driveways behind us. If anybody knows what that is, there's like a driveway for cars you park, and then there's another set of row houses behind that. So I babysat for a woman.
You said Philadelphia, I'm pretty sure.
Philadelphia.
You said Philly. I mean, there are a few people who probably don't know what Philly means, except it could be a female horse. But I just
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
This is Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, with the row houses and the thing in behind between the two houses. Okay, and there's a driveway, a little road, and you can park back there. Okay. Yeah,
but kids play back there too, or did. So I babysat for a woman and her children, and here's my house on 8th Street. Hers was on 9th. So we're separated by the driveway by about 4 houses. So we're at an angle. I can look at her house at an angle via the driveway. I'm on the beach one day. I haven't seen Sandy in years and years. I moved away when I was 16 from that street. She moved to New Jersey. I haven't seen her for years. Number one coincidence, she's on my beach. I hear her voice. It's very distinctive in my memory. I go over to her, Sandy, oh my gosh. And, we're hugging. And she said, oh, I finally got to buy a house down the shore. I said, where? Dorset Avenue, 508 or 513. I'm on Dudley, 504. If you look out my back door to Dorset, she is positioned this way now in her house to my house. So but when I heard the definition of the fractal, I can't remember who was talking about that. I have it all written down. I have all these notes. I think it was Ray Grassi. Is that how you say his name?
Yeah.
Ray Grassi, yeah. I think he was talking about fractals, or maybe it was Dean Radin. I don't remember. I was watching both of them the other day. So when I heard him talking about fractal coincidences, that one came to mind. I mean, that was an amazing story to me.
That's amazing. That's That's a nice one. I see what you mean. But what you're saying is the geometry of your relationship when you were 16 and before to her house was repeated again on Dorset Avenue and where you were then living again.
Yes.
So
Now.
now, I mean,
Now.
and now, and you had to go to the beach to meet her. You
I
live near the beach. You live
I
near.
live near the. I live seven blocks from the beach.
That's so
And
nice. And
so now
you
the
didn't know she
street
was
on-
living this close to you until you were
I
on the
didn't know
beach.
she was living at the shore
So
at all.
there's a lot of people who like go to Kathmandu or something and run into people from their hometown or they have from the past. But the thing about this one is perhaps not so surprising because you both live in the same town, but you didn't know it because you were going to run into each other somehow. Just because you were living in the same place and the beach is a big attractor. But the thing that really gets you, and I see what you mean, is the angle of your houses was the same. And
50 years apart, almost 50 years apart.
50 years, that's far out
Almost.
groovy, you know. It
is.
That's a good one. I'm glad you got to that one. That's a good one.
It's just amazing. I mean, I'm amazed every day about these coincidences. Seriously, they happen a lot to me, and it's so amusing, and it's just amazing to me. Amazing. But so I could tell you the deja vu. Now I could start off the whole train with Cuyamungue if you want.
Cuyamungue, okay.
Cuyamungue.
Cuyamungue. Oh,
Cuyamungue.
Cuyamungue. Okay, I've got that now. Cuyamungue. Okay, thank you. In case anybody's wondering, Carolyn mentioned postures, and Cuyamungue Institute teaches people ancient postures, which get them into like altered state of consciousness. Just to be clear, Laura Lee from the Institute was on my show a while back, and it was mystical postures. That was the title of that one. So tell us the Deja Vu and how you connected with the Cuyamungue Institute again.
Okay, I will. So when I was 6 years old, I was 6, the summer that I was 6 years old, taking my smaller brother to the art camp at our elementary school. When I walked through the gates of the playground there, the play lot there, into the school area, I had a deja vu. Of course, I didn't know what it was at the time. And the whole camp.
What's a deja vu?
A deja vu. Did you ever have a deja vu?
What's a deja vu?
Well, I don't even know what it is, but it feels like you've been there before. It feels like this has happened before for, a couple seconds maybe, and it's all wiggly like in your head kind of. I don't get them very often anymore. I don't really get them very often at all in my life, I don't think. But this one I remember, first of all, because it was the first one. I was young, and I always have had an inquisitive mind, and so the whole camp, I was thinking, what was that? That meant something. What was that? That had to mean something. And when I got home, my mother was laying on the porch swing, crying her heart out. My great-grandfather had died that morning. And I immediately connected that deja vu to that happening, which is okay. It's all right. You can't prove that at all. You can't prove any of this really, but now come, how many years later, 55 years later, we're probably 50 years later, I go to Cuyamungue Institute in New Mexico, and I fall in love with this posture work, and feel a connection to Felicitas Goodman, who is the founder of the Institute. And now it's present time now, 5, 6 years later, I'm listening to one of their Sunday talks. They have guests such as yourself come in on Sunday and talk about various metaphysical things. And the one week, a guy who's going for his doctorate in sound things. He did a lot of research into Felicitas in the Institute, I think, because he was trying to, he was doing a good job. He tells the story. Felicitas bought the land in 1962 or 3. She looked for 2-3 years. She's it's 450 acres. She's walking all over the land. She's trying to find where she's going to build this institute. The summer of 1965, when I had my deja vu, she found her place where she saw where she was going to build this institute, which is small. It's just a few buildings. It's not real large. I don't even know if it covers an acre, the institute itself. When he said that, he told that story, I got the chills so badly, and that came to me. My heart stopped. This never usually happens. And I thought, oh my God, I felt Felicitas see where she was going to build this institute at the time when I had my deja vu. And I really believe that was tied in to my deja vu experience also, that coincidence, that same time. So Ray Grass, I did love that guy. He was really personable. He said the other day there was a connecting and a converging of vectors, a coinciding of events. And that's what when he said that, I thought that was definitely what happened there with that connection to me.
Well, thank you. That's 2 major events. One, currently your grandfather dying, and the second, some way into the future, happened at the same time. You got a funny feeling that this has happened before.
Right.
That's what about your grandfather, but this is happening now, but it's happening at a distance. So it begins to raise the question about the relationship between time and distance, that they're really not that different in a lot of people's ways of thinking. And what you did was experience both time and distance at the same time. And that makes you think there's something else going on here. And the thing that makes you think that is that they happened around the same time. And like correlation is not causation, as scientists like to say, but it certainly is a hint. And what happened to you is very, very interesting because it does time and space at the same time.
Yes, and then subsequent to my becoming involved with Cuyamungue, I have a few Felicitas coincidences that I feel like we are connected in some way. I sincerely feel that way because of these few other things that have happened since I've become involved with them.
But we can leave that alone, but just leave it as another part of this, that this was maybe the first, but not the only feeling you had with Felicitas, and right. that somehow you were connected. And that kind of connection we have with people sometimes results in what I've called a simulpathity, feeling the pain or distress of a loved one at a distance. So that it means that perhaps sometime you could feel stuff going on with her, and then later could confirm that what you felt was going on with her around the same time. Was there anything like that?
Well, only that one with the deja vu story. I've never met Felicitas in person. She passed away long before I visited the Institute. So she's on the other side now, but I am getting messages via coincidences from her. And I have them listed as part of my under my categories. I have a couple of those stories under some of these categories.
So tell us one of those.
Okay, I'll tell you I'll go with the weird one first. I can't even I can't even describe this as anything other than weird. The director, Paul Robert, sends out a newsletter once a month. Tells about what they've been doing at the Institute and what's coming up. And this one particular time at the very bottom, it was like a little addendum. He mentioned a book by Felicitas, a little tiny book. It just sounded so interesting to me. I was called to go right on the computer, look for it under Amazon. I look for used books. You know how you look, it's good, it's great, blah, blah, blah. The third one down looked good to me. So I picked it, ordered it, it came. Inside is a inscription from Felicitas herself. Weird. Weird, I ask you. I mean, it was so weird. It's just so fun. It's really fun. Another one I have is regarding dreams. A friend of mine from Cuyamungue sent me, we got taken with each other, and he sent me a book. He had ordered some of these books, and then they went out of print. So he gifted me the book. I put it away. By the way, I do have your book here too. I want to let you know. I do. He gifted me the book, and I just put it aside. I didn't, I was busy and didn't look at it. A few nights later, I go to bed. I'm going to bed. And just as I'm falling asleep, a lion roars up in my face and then turns into an older woman. And I say, Felicitas. And immediately the older woman gets into a posture, shows me a posture. I'm laying in bed, I'm half asleep. So I thought, I'll do this in my, as I'm laying down here, I'll check this out and see what happens. I don't even know if I was awake or asleep. It's one of those liminal times. So I get into the posture, I have my eyes closed, and I start feeling all this energy moving. Just like as if in a posture, you get different things in each posture, but the postures have certain characteristics. A lot of times, each one has the same characteristic, a lot of time experienced by a lot of people. So I experience this, and then I hear a number, 101. Next morning, I wake up, open page 101. There's the posture that I was shown. So I know it was Felicitas. There's the posture. I know it was Felicitas, and the description of the posture of what people experience is exactly what I experienced. So I tell Paul and Laura, and they use that posture for the next couple of times. They have free Zoom meetings, but amazing. It's just so amazing.
Yeah, that's a good one.
You can't even make this stuff up. I mean, it's just nuts. And then what else do I have for Felicitas? Oh, well, this wasn't a coincidence, but I got to sleep in her bunk the first year that I attended there, because I stayed later, and I stayed a few days longer. And I heard in the middle of the night, I do the work because I am the work. And that, I said to Paul the next day, did you ever hear Felicitas say this? He said, I've never heard her say that, but it is something she would say. So, I really just feel so connected to her because of these things that have come to me. It's just amazing, amazing.
Well, I get it. I enjoy how you enjoy these things.
Love it.
I mean, that's
it's one of my joys. It really is.
Yeah, they should be fun. I mean, and I mean, people get really serious about them, and it's spiritual and interpersonal, and do that. Okay, and that's there. But the fun that you have is wonderful for people to see, because that's also a part of it. I call it the learning entertainment interface. So tell us some more stories.
Okay. Let's see, what haven't I covered? Oh, okay. So another dream category I would say would be precognitive. And this, I'm going to use a lot of Cuyamungue because I do want to advertise for them. It's a wonderful institute and with so many things, so many benefits to checking them out. But I had, like I said, all my life I've had these various things, like Cuyamungue is a big thing for me. I have all these coincidences surrounding it, you know, becoming working for the government is another whole thing that I have so many things or coincidence stories around. So I'll go with the theme. Precognition, I have before it's kind of, this one's kind of almost like a manifesting precognition thing, because before I was going the first year, I had the intention, I wanted to find a drum for myself when I was there that I could bring home and use. I didn't have any drums at the time. And a friend of mine told me about the Taos drum store, which is so great. It's gigantic. They have so many, it's all local artists, local people come in and make their drums, and they sell all kinds of stuff there. It's a great store. So I had the intention to go there, but one night before I went to Cuyamungue on my trip, I dreamed a drum appeared, and it had the spiral. I'm big with the spirals all my life. The spiral, an eagle, and then some other thing down here that I couldn't recognize what it was two things, and I couldn't tell what it was. Okay, so I write all my dreams. I write them down. I was writing them down at the time. So we go to the drum store and I'm searching. There's all, you know, the drum that I saw, you know, I could tell it was this size. And so rows and rows and rows of these size drums, none of them looking anything like mine, what I dreamed. So I was a little disappointed, walked around, and we went with a few friends, and there was one woman that was taking care of the store that she said she was there for 20 years. She knew the store intimately. Anyway, I'm shopping around for other things. I go back, I said to myself, I got to go back there and look again. This drum has to be there. Go back to the same, the drum's there, the drum is there. The drum was there. And I couldn't believe my eyes. I went over to the woman. I said, so this is a blah, blah size. Is it you know, that how much this is? And she looks at it and she says, where did you get that drum? And I said, over there on the shelf with the other drums. She said, I never saw that drum before. It's not even signed by the artist. I said, I dreamed this drum. She said, oh, are you Native American? And I said, no, I'm not, but I've been hanging out with a lot of Native Americans. At that time I had been. She said, I never saw that drum before. I don't even know where it came from. True story, true story.
So the drum shows up the second time you take a tour of the store, and she'd never seen it before. Never. So now I'm pretty good at not seeing stuff that I'm looking for that's right in front of me. I'm really good at not seeing what I'm looking for if it's right in front of me. I can do the stuff that's around me, but that's one of my talents, which I'm not proud of, but I spent a lot of time looking for something that's right in front of me. But this one, you don't know for sure the drum wasn't there until the person who owns the store said, I've never seen it before. So there's a little book from England, the Psychic Society of England, it's like stuff that just happens. Stuff happens like that. And just one of those things is the name of the book. And it's like, what? And you have to think that maybe there's somebody playing around with you. That's what you end up thinking about. But it depends on your orientation toward the world. And what do you think happened there?
Well, are you referring to me not seeing it at first, or it being there?
I don't care. I want to hear how you think about this whole thing. Maybe you didn't see it the first time. Maybe
I
it got
did not see it the first time, and I really was looking, and I was.
Yeah, you looked pretty thoroughly. That's what I'm trying to say.
I really did. I really did.
So it would appear that somebody put it there between the first and second looks. That's what it looks like from your description.
Well, yeah, but although I never really thought of it that way, but it does. It does. Now that you're saying it, it does kind of look like that. Because where did it come from? I know. So it's one of those manifest / dream kind of circumstances that came into fruition.
Oh, that's what you mean by manifest.
Yeah, well, that isn't my manifest story, but that definitely, like, I manifested that because I did have the intention to purchase a drum before I went. Then I dreamed this drum, and then it appeared.
You did have the intention of buying the drum, or didn't?
I had an intention of buying a drum.
A drum, and then you saw the specific drum
in my dream,
and then you saw it the second time through the store. But the to me, the weird part of it is that the person who owns the store never saw it before. That's a confirmation of something. Well, you say manifest and you don't explain it, and what I'm saying is what I'm saying doesn't really explain it either. But I'm just saying that somehow it got there, and it's like somehow it would have to be transported from where it was to where it became. And the transportation could be through space, could be through time. Again, as we were talking about, it's just someplace else now, and it just showed up here, and that's what you what you saw, and that somehow your dream was precognitive or kind of fulfilled what you were looking for. So so that's what you mean by manifestation. We don't know how this stuff works. The important thing is that we observe that it happens, and the data you've given us is the store owner didn't know it was there and you didn't see it. And what does it mean that it wasn't signed?
Oh, I'm sorry. So the artist, I must admit, every drum in that store is signed by the artist who created the drum. This drum does not have a signature anywhere. Oh, going the wrong way. Anywhere.
I understand that, but what does it mean that doesn't have a signature on it?
Oh, I think it was spirit given. It was spirit given.
So there's an invisible hand there.
Yes.
That signed it somehow. Okay, it made it.
And I'll show you one other really weird thing. A lot of people might not see it in the, I don't know if you can see it.
It looks like a record. It's a sun.
It is a sun with the spiral. And then after I got it home, it created its own shadow. I swear, you can't see it in this light. I don't think.
I can see I can see a shadow.
To me, the shadow looks like it's a man pushing the spiral towards these are the two. This is the, kind of the ethereal horse, and this is the horse that lives in this world. This is what this drum means to me. It's the two sides of the coin there. The spiritual
of ethereal, spiritual and materialistic, you mean?
Yeah. Yes, but you can't really see the person pushing. Unfortunately, I don't think you can see the shadow. But after I got it home, it really looks like a man pushing the spiral along like this. It's pretty bizarre. I have another good manifesting story. You want to hear it? No, you don't want to hear it, Bernie. My son, my youngest son, sometimes he doesn't like to spend his money very readily, but he really wanted a bike. He's 27 now. He really wanted a bike, and this is recent. This is last New Year's Day, not this past, but the year before. Talking about getting a bike, he wants a bike. I'm like, just buy the bike. He's working, get the bike. No, Doesn't give the vibe. So we have a little party, just family on New Year's Eve. My granddaughter sleeps over. She always sleeps in my bed. Early in the morning, it's still dark. We hear, oh, we both opened our eyes and looked at each other. It sounded like a storm outside the window. It sounded like the Wizard of Oz when they were having the tornado. Like, what was going on? Except I have a giant bell out there. Gong thing was not ringing. It did not sound. And then I heard like a tap, tap, tap on the window, and it was over. Later that day, I go outside. There's a bike, a men's bike, sitting under my window in the grass, under the bedroom window. Don't know. Oh, you're speechless, Bernie. I love it. That's a good one, right? I looked at that bike and I'm like, what? Like, it definitely was, it was crazy. When I saw that bike, I mean, that was like, whoa. That's a good manifestation.
I know how you feel. That's part of the reason I was speechless, because I got up from my birthday when I was like, I don't know, 6. And I go out and there's a bike. And it was the same kind of feeling. I think it just manifested, to me. It was there, and that I really wanted a bike. So I have a feeling. I mean, I know how it happened, but this one, we don't know how it happened, but the feeling is still, wow.
Yeah. I mean, when I saw that bike out there, I really couldn't believe my eyes. It was almost like that car that almost hit me if I was sitting on the steps. I was like, what?
That's one to get knocked over by. That is definitely one to get knocked over by.
Yeah,
Okay, we have about 5 or 10 minutes left, Carolyn. So let's.
Oh my goodness.
Let's. Hey, we just having fun telling all these stories. So you're illustrating. So so pick a couple other ones, and then we'll have to stop.
Okay. All right. Let's see. I'll do one that it's like a 3-part story, and then we can stop. So that this falls under the categories of visions while doing postures, or, meditation. If you're not into postures, I'm sure a lot of people have visions when they're meditating and then have a coincidence after. So back in the day, before I even got to Cuyamungue, a psychic friend of mine, started being interested in postures. So she introduced them to our meditation group. Ugh, can't talk. One in particular, the Long Man. I think it's the Long Man of England is the name. It's a giant man. He's holding a staff, and this is a real thing in England. It's a smashed onto the side of a giant mountain is this giant man holding this staff, and that's where this artifact came from for this posture. It's indented into the ground. Okay, so we do the posture at my friend's house, and I get a whole vision of how our souls come together to form the egg. I saw the whole thing. It was like rain coming down, or no, it was coming from the up, like energy, light rain kind of thing, forming a person. And then it formed into an egg. Then it went shot down a tube. That was my vision of that. Bizarre kind of for the Long Man, but that's okay. So then another time we did the same one, and I get a vision of how this thing was made. It was a giant, fell from the heavens, fell into this mountainside, got up and walked away. And I saw where it walked away, the whole landscape, described the landscape. This friend of mine, she's kind of like me with she wants to know everything, you know, how things are put together. She contacts somebody in England about this Longman Mountain and asks about the landscape around it. And it's exactly how I described. So to me, that's verification and validation. Okay, fast forward a few years, I'm at Cuyamungue. It's our last day maybe, and we have a guest coming. He's a scientist and a geologist, anthropologist. He's been working with the Tewa and Cuyamungue tribes in the area. They've gotten permission from Paul and Laura and the board on the land of Cuyamungue. They have like 500 acres to walk around and see what they can see. So that was the first time in all this time that Felicitas had the land. She was already passed. They gave permission for it to be surveyed a little bit. So we have the anthropologist coming at lunch to talk to us about the land a little bit, right after the posture. We do the long man in the Kiva, or I think we did it in the Thunderbird. There's two main buildings where you do postures at Cuyamungue. It's a wonderful, wonderful institute. I can't say enough about it. Anyway, so we do the long man, and I get reminded of the first time I had the vision about the forming of the person and the egg, and then I hear, well, this energy, liquidy stuff comes from the soup of souls. And that was pretty much the addition to that experience that I had with this posture. So we go, the guy, 5 minutes later, we go to lunch. The guy's there, he's talking, and he's talking about the Tewa people, and he tells about the lake down the road. The Tewa people call it the soup of souls, because that's where the souls go to rest, and then when they come back and they're ready to be reborn. And I'm like, what did you just say? But I mean, the only thing that I heard in addition to the first was the soup of souls thing. You know, while I was at Cuyamungue, that's what I heard about this posture. So that was pretty interesting. That was pretty big coincidence. And you could say, you know, one could argue, oh, did you psychically maybe know he was going to talk about that, and, you know, that kind of thing. It's all a mystery anyway, you know, Bernie, it's all a mystery.
Well, it's a mystery that I'm trying to solve sometimes. And there was a statistician in Cambridge University who said to me, when I interviewed him, he says, trying to explain these things is bad for your mental health. He was telling me that. And there's some truth to that. There's a place to, yeah, I got to stop trying to figure some of this out. I've got my basic ideas, but that's my basic ideas that I can apply now. Enough already. I've got a bunch of categories. They're not bad, and there's still going to be mystery hanging around. We're not going to understand. So I have a couple of questions before we end. Have you gotten into any Kabbalistic thinking, since there's some relationship between the kind of experiences you have and Kabbalistic thinking?
Well, my son is a religion major. In the Jewish religion, mainly, he's studied so many things, and he says that we really should not be messing around with the Kabbalah. You know, it's reserved for people that have studied the Talmud for a really long time, and then they get to a point where they're ready to study the Kabbalah. So, you know, I'm okay with that. I don't need to study the Kabbalah. I'm happy with the messages that I get and the validation that I get that I really am connected to everyone. And, you know, that's what does it to me. I really don't have to explain these things. I'm happy that they keep happening and they make me happy, and they're amazed.
That's good. That's good. I don't have to explain how they happen. They just make me happy. Happy happen, happy, happy happen, happy.
Exactly.
That's what we got with you. So, and that leads us into like, would you tell us something more personal about yourself? I mean, you've told us about some of your experiences, but just about Carolyn. How do you say your last name, for example?
Pokres is my married name.
Carolyn Pokres. Tell us a little bit about your personal life as we end.
Oh, geez. Like my current personal life?
Yeah, your current personal life is good enough, but whatever, that's a general category. What would you like people to know about you personally?
I just think that I was probably born to be a helper, to help people. I was a medical assistant forever until my kids were born, and then I stayed home with them for a little while. Then when I was getting ready to go back to work, when they were a little older, they were still paying the same thing as they were when I left. So I didn't know what to do. One day, a little voice inside my head said, go back to school for computers because that's the wave of the future. So that's what I did. I ended up getting my job as an internship from a professor at my school that liked my work ethic. He set me up with a work study program. The manager picked me up, and here I am 22 years later at the FAA with a career that is actually helping people still at the FAA. I help people, like 9 or 12,000 people with their IT needs. I'm the liaison to IT for them. So, and I have 3 kids, 4 grandchildren. Oh, and the whole community food garden started when COVID started. I sat on my back porch and I'm thinking, there's a plot of land, like I live in a complex, and I thought to myself, well, I could just make that into a food garden. That would be so nice. People walking by, and then the George Floyd thing happened, and I was so upset about to think that this is still happening. 50 years later, when I was young, it was 50. It's been going on for longer than that, but you kind of get complacent and think things have changed, but I realized they hadn't. Yeah. And then I was going to taking like shamanic classes in a yurt nearby. And if you see the elephant, the teacher I had there is also an artist. And this is a shamanic painting. She was doing a whole show. And we did go during COVID. They were taking like 6 people at a time to see the show. And when I walked in and saw this, I was like struck. But it was so much money, I would have never bought it for myself, ever. So she had made a little video, it was on YouTube. I went right home and looked at the video, and at the very end, in the video, she's talking about George Floyd, everything that I had been thinking about during COVID. She put into this painting. There's layers and layers and layers in this painting. And at the end, she says, this is my reparation painting. All the proceeds are going to crops. It's a women's run food community garden in Atlantic City, started by this woman. Now they have 3 and they're hooked in with the college here, and they're feeding a lot of people. All the proceeds, I'm like, called her up. I said, I'm buying this. I'm buying the matriarch is her name. And so that's another coincidence kind of thing. But so, and then I'm sitting there. I want to start a community garden in Ventnor. Ventnor, we're a little short town. We don't have very much open space. So I figured one day I said, I'm going to call City Hall, just see if we could do this, And they hooked me up to a woman who is so into the idea, but doesn't want to really do a lot of the legwork and a lot of the calling people to come volunteer, yada, yada, yada. Where are we going to do this? All this. But she hooked me. She is instrumental in Ventnor. And she called. They just ran water at the one giant open green space we have in Ventnor. They just ran water to it. And the green team is involved now, and we're going to start a community garden. That's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So
Well,
that's my
you.
life.
Well, thank you very much, Carolyn Pokres. Thank you very much for showing us inside of a high frequency coincider, which you are definitely. And it's been a delight having you with us.
Thank you, Bernie. It's been a delight being here.
This psychosphere is our mental atmosphere, like a hologram of cosmic consciousness.